Hey guys, Nate the Film Nerd here. I'm excited to announce my new sub-series that I'll be adding to the channel called I Finally Watched, and today I'll be talking about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. So yeah, I wanted to do a new series of reviews specifically dedicated to films that just became available on digital streaming or VOD. Basically, films that I waited to see at home as opposed to going all the way to a theater to see them. Theaters aren't super convenient for me anymore in terms of me driving to them and based on the area that I live. And also, just a lot of annoying people go to the theaters nowadays. And so I'm particularly choosy about which movies I'm willing to go to a theater for and which movies I'm willing to stay home for. And man, oh man, am I very glad that I decided to stay home and wait for the release of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice because this movie sucked so hard. And I need to preface this by saying that I absolutely love the original Beetlejuice. I think there's actually going to be a lot of similarities that I'm going to compare for this movie to both Ghostbusters, as far as the first Beetlejuice goes, and then Ghostbusters Afterlife for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. I think there's a lot of similarities between these movies that I'll get into. But yeah, the first Beetlejuice, much like the first Ghostbusters film, is a lightning in a bottle. It's a movie that, like, on paper should not work at all. It should be a disaster. It's a movie that has really no depth, no meaningful themes, no character growth. You know, nobody learns anything. It's not saying anything, and yet it's just a fun, exceptionally well-made, creative, absurd movie. It's a movie that doesn't take itself seriously. It's a movie that exists for the sole purpose of being silly, being outrageous, being creative with its visuals and its special effects and filmmaking techniques that Tim Burton used back when he was a significantly better filmmaker than he is now. And it's perfect for what it is. And it's a movie that this film, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, very much proves, never needed a sequel. Never needed one. And yet I am in the minority here because this movie, much like Ghostbusters Afterlife, has gotten pretty decent reviews, not amazing reviews, but positive reviews. I use Letterboxd. I link them in all my videos for every video I do. So if anyone's interested in following my Letterboxd, I'll mention it in the description. But I was, reading some Letterboxd reviews of Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, and there were more positive reviews than there were negative ones. And all of them were like, well, it's not as good as the first one. The film's not perfect. It has its problems, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I think it's a good addition to the first movie. And I was like, okay. So I'm going to go in this movie with a very neutral but leaning towards positive attitude in that I know it's not going to be as good as the first, but let's hope that I still get some enjoyment out of it. No. Yeah, so where do I even begin? Well, the first problem that this movie has is that there are numerous moments that try to take itself seriously. So that's strike number one. Like I mentioned, there are parallels between this and Ghostbusters Afterlife. So, like I said, for the first Beetlejuice, that movie being a one-of-a-kind movie, it shouldn't work, but somehow it ends up perfect. You go to Ghostbusters 1984, basically the same thing can be said there. Fast forward to Ghostbusters Afterlife, where they try to reboot the series, bring it back, and they make one of the biggest mistakes that you can make is trying to make a Ghostbusters movie that has an actual emotional center, trying to be melodramatic, trying to be heartwarming, and it's like, no, that's a dumb idea. Have you ever seen Ghostbusters? Ghostbusters is a reverent comedy that's mostly just Bill Murray fucking around. That's what Ghostbusters is. That's what makes that movie great. Beetlejuice, basically the same thing. It's mainly just our cast of characters, especially Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, just fucking around. The movie's not trying to be emotional. It's not trying to develop its characters. It's not that kind of movie. And so when Beetlejuice decides to take itself seriously in several different scenes, it's hard for me to care, and it's hard for me to take it seriously. Jenna Ortega's character is the daughter of Lydia, Winona Ryder's character. And there's a whole subplot. That's the other thing about this movie too. So many fucking subplots that are pointless, that don't need to be in the movie, and yet they're in there anyway. And it's I don't understand it. That's the one thing most people seem to agree on, is that even if people like this movie, they agree that there's way too many subplots. But to me, that's just one of many issues I have with this movie. So Jenna Ortega's character, she ends up meeting a boy, and it's kind of, romantic and cute and very teeny bop bullshit. And then there ends up being somewhat of a twist with that leads to the climax of this movie. But as I was watching these scenes, I was like, am I watching a Beetlejuice movie? Like, what is this? Why am I trying to care about this? I like Jenna Ortega. I think she's a talented actress. I've seen her in stuff a lot, but her talents are completely wasted in this movie because she is playing just the most stereotypical estranged daughter. There's no personality to her character. It's just, I'm mad at my mom, and it's like, why is this in a Beetlejuice movie? Like, who cares? It's one of the biggest gripes I have with most legacy sequels. They always try to add in a daughter or son character that's related to our original characters, and they always have an estranged relationship. And I'm like, I'm so sick of seeing this trope in movies. It doesn't add anything, and it's just like, it's pointless. And so, yeah, so there's numerous scenes in this movie where, we're supposed to care about and sympathize with Jenna Ortega's character and sympathize with Lydia because of their estranged relationship. And I'm like, I don't care, because I am watching a Beetlejuice movie. A movie that should not be about parents being estranged or, trying to find love between one another and trying to bring back that mother-daughter bond. Like, I want to watch goofy ghost shit. That's what I want to watch. Why is this in a Beetlejuice movie? Why is it so integral to the plot? Like, who thought this was a good idea? And that goes into the other problem, is that this movie is just not funny. And I know that humor is completely subjective, so what I find funny and what other people might find funny is going to vary heavily. I acknowledge that, but I can count on one hand the amount of times I very mildly chuckled to myself, almost all exclusively surrounding Michael Keaton. Now let's talk about Michael Keaton. He is far and away the best aspect about this movie, and it's not even close. But that being said, you can tell that Beetlejuice, the way Michael Keaton plays the character, doesn't have the same energy, that same manic, infectious, absurd energy in comparison to the original movie. Now, Michael Keaton is much older now, as he was, the original Beetlejuice came out 36 years ago. So obviously he's not going to have that same type of vigor, not that same energy level. But as I was watching the movie, I was like, he's slower. He's not as quick, he's not as energetic, and it made me feel kind of sad. And it also made me question, why make this movie now? It's a little too late, 36 years after the fact. Michael Keaton does the best that he can, and he's like I said, the best aspect about this movie, but it doesn't compare to the original Beetlejuice, where he was obviously much younger, much more enthusiastic about the performance. Here, I don't feel that same energy. I just don't. And I'm curious or not whether or not people feel the same way I do about that, or whether they think I'm completely off. I'm not really sure, but that was just something I noticed. And then as far as the cast goes, there's fantastic actors and actresses in this movie. Obviously, Catherine O'Hara comes back, but she's just more annoying and more yelling a lot, and her character is like too much of a focal point in this movie, as opposed to the amount of scene she was in the previous Beetlejuice, where it's like she was in that movie an appropriate amount, and here it feels like there's too much, and also doesn't really contribute to any of the joy or humor in this movie. It was mostly annoying. I found most of the humor in this movie to be very annoying. There's Willem Dafoe. I love Willem Dafoe. Who doesn't love Willem Dafoe? I can't figure out why he's in this movie. He serves little to no function whatsoever, and then the same can go for Monica Bellucci. Why is she in this movie, other than the fact that she's dating Tim Burton? I like Monica Bellucci a lot. She's a very talented, beautiful actress. You take out her subplot in this movie, doesn't change a thing. Everything in this movie would operate exactly how it does, more or less. The only real good thing I can say about the movie is that it looks good. I appreciated that the movie utilized physical sets, physical props, costumes, fun creature, makeup design effects. All that stuff's good. It doesn't improve on the original. There's nothing in this movie. This is probably my number one flaw with this movie. There is nothing in this movie that outdoes what's in the original movie. Nothing. Like everything that's good in this movie, the original already did it. It's like, yeah, the costumes look good. The sets look good. The sandworms are back. They look good. Okay. That's it. That's all this movie has. Because I can just rewatch the first Beetlejuice, like I will continue to do, and never watch this movie again. I think the reason I ended up having such a visceral, like, negative reaction to it is because there's just been so many of these lackluster legacy sequel cash grab movies, and this one just kind of got to me because I love Beetlejuice. I am not opposed to the idea, or I wasn't originally opposed to the idea of a Beetlejuice sequel. I had my, concerns about it, but I'm like, maybe it could be good. And it's just so, and that's the other thing. This movie's just boring. It's boring because everything that's good in it has already been done in the original movie, and everything that's added or new takes away from my enjoyment of the film. I don't watch Beetlejuice to get invested in these characters' lives. I don't watch Beetlejuice to see an estranged daughter whine about her mom. So yeah, it's just, it's not that this is like the worst movie I've ever seen. I know that's kind of how I'm coming across. It's just that this movie is really an embodiment of just lazy legacy sequels that are utterly pointless. Yeah, that's my thoughts on Beetlejuice. I thought this was an incredibly disappointing, very lackluster, half-assed legacy sequel that looked good. It had the look of a Beetlejuice movie, but it didn't have hardly any of the charm or any of the unique zany humor that made me love the original movies so much. Anytime this movie tries to be zany or it tries to capture the same spirit of the original Beetlejuice, it just feels like a lazy imitation at best. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Beetlejuice. I'm curious to see the response to this video. Remember, this is just my opinion. So if you get mad, just know that nobody cares. You're entitled to be mad. I'm entitled to not like this movie. We can disagree and get along. It's not a big deal, but mention in the comments below what your thoughts on this movie are. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Are there things that you agree with me with? Are there things you disagree with me with? All I ask is that you be respectful, but mention in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching.